I'm a free agent. I'm in the transfer portal. So yeah, it's a different feel, but like I said, I'm at peace, and I did not want to be that guy that overstayed his welcome, and people just saying, hey, when's this guy going to leave? That was not my intention ever, and I hope I didn't do that. I'm sure with some people I did do that, but to me the timing is right.
All right, everybody, welcome on into a special edition of the KSL Sports Zone Live today. Across the board, we're dipping in with all of our hosts. We're dipping in with all of our staff who have anything to do with the University of Utah. And we are talking about Kyle Whittingham and the possibility of him being hired, according to many sources, all but an official done deal. It looks likely that Kyle Whittingham will be the next head football coach at the University of Michigan, after, of course, stepping down mere weeks ago. And last week, finally getting that press conference where we got to ask Kyle Whittingham about the future and what it looked like. And his idea, I mean, we should have read it. We should have read it for what it was. And none of it was that he was going to be done coaching, Lloyd Cole. I mean, my goodness, we knew, and I think we just didn't tell our brains. We told ourselves that, of course, he'll want to ride off into the sunset. Of course he's not going to coach again. This is his place. Utah was his place. He wants to hang out with the grandkids. His wife doesn't want to pick up and move anywhere. We made a lot of assumptions about how things would go with Kyle Whittingham, but it looks like he's going to be the next head coach of the University of Michigan, and we are absolutely here for all of it because that's what our job is, Lloyd. But
yes, it is. And by the way, shout out. I'm just going to shout out everybody.
Yeah, all of our
staff, because that's what we
staff.
do.
Yep.
Everybody on staff. You know, when news like this happens, it's like, okay, you know what? Got to come in. You and I were talking about it in the break. It reminds me a little bit of the Gordon Hayward back in, what was it, 2017?
And it's a mere,
and
that's just a scratch. The Gordon Hayward is just a scratch on the news. And CBS Sports now, according to CBS Sports, Jay Hill's name is now being floated out there as the defensive coordinator for Kyle Whittingham if this deal does go through.
Part
Annapolis,
of that ripple effect that we talked about.
Yeah, we were just talking about how this thing's going to get affected because it looks like, because the name that's already been floated out from the offensive coordinator position was Jason Beck, who, of course, had his successful 1 year at Utah. And Kyle Whittingham, for all the things that he does really, really well, I think maintain amazing relationships with former offensive coordinators might not necessarily be the one that he has. But he had success 1 year with Jason Beck, the number 6 offense in the entire country. And CBS Sports reporting that Jay Hill's name is at the top of the list for Kyle Whittingham at defensive coordinator at Michigan. So what that ripple effect looks like for BYU, of course, will be absolutely massive as well because arguably, obviously you've got Kalani, who's that main piece down there, but Jay Hill and the success that defense has brought. And by the way, with the era of the transfer portal, the names that might end up leaving the BYU program, the Utah program, from a player's perspective, to go with their coaches potentially leaving is also massive. Joining us on the program right now, Jeremiah Jensen. He hosts, let me check the list here, JJ and Alex in the afternoons on the KSL Sports Zone.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of that show. Maybe you guys have listened to that.
Maybe, yeah.
Hey, JJ.
Maybe. JJ, first of all.
Lloyd, how you doing?
Good, man. I just killed myself a ham sandwich. A Christmas ham sandwich.
You're having a good...
Yeah.
Is that a post Christmas ham?
That is a post Christmas ham. I just killed it in the break.
Good
I brought
for
a
you.
couple sandwiches. Mama made me and when I say mama, I mean my wife. Made us some sandwiches.
You don't want to be that guy.
Made us some sandwiches and shared one. I'm sorry I did not bring you one.
Well, no,
Alex,
it's fine. I had the
apologize.
Lunchables. I'm fine. But here's the other thing: SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com. No, but I was told down in the newsroom, and Jared, you may be able to confirm this. I mean, they do. When it's Christmas, they bust out all of the foods for the staff that have to be there on Christmas Day, and so I was told that I've got a beat on some Christmas ham that may be down in the TV newsroom fridge that we might have to rate a little bit later. But that's how we keep it going. We keep the energy levels up on a day like today. We just heard Annapolis just threw it in our ear that CBS is reporting that Jay Hill would be the defensive coordinator. That's not a shock, knowing the connections that they have. It's a shock when we start to think about how wild the last few weeks have been, but this ripple effect of Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan is going to be vast, and it will affect these local programs likely for a long time. Your thoughts on this whole thing going down?
Oh, the whole thing. My goodness. Where do I start? Where do I begin? First of all, this is a awesome hire for Michigan, by the way. we're not. I know that people listening right now here in Utah don't care about Michigan, but it needs to be acknowledged how great of a hire this is for Michigan. Because if you look at the Michigan situation, this is not a program that is broken or lacking talent. They just had a bad guy as a head coach that got caught doing bad things, and now they're looking for somebody to replace him. Who better to come in to a program like that and to provide structure, discipline? You're not going to find a more squeaky clean head coach as far as, some of that drama and all that kind of stuff. He's all business. This is exactly what Michigan needs. And doesn't Kyle Whittingham feel like a Big Ten guy? Everything he's about, the way he coaches, the way he does things, the identity of his teams throughout his time and tenure feels like a Big Ten team. So it makes perfect sense for Michigan to come in and bring Kyle Whittingham in. Yes, at age 66. I don't think this is a long-term thing, but for now, this is perfect. It's exactly what Michigan needs to do to clean up this problem that they have. But the talent is there for Kyle Whittingham to go in there and win immediately. Now, this is where it impacts everybody here. And this is my first thought. We heard it made Alex, we talked about this.
Yeah.
The Michigan job comes up. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if Kyle Whittingham would be interested. And here we are. He's very interested, and they're very interested in him. And it looks like this is going to happen. It could be officially announced as soon as this afternoon sometime. Now the impact is, what does this mean for the programs here in Utah? Because he has so many ties here. And as you guys know, Kyle Whittingham is about relationships and loyalty with guys that he knows and trusts. He rarely goes outside of his circle. To bring in coaches and assistants. He likes to go with people he knows and trusts. And there's been a lot of them. And a lot of them still work in the state at Utah and BYU and maybe other places. We'll see what kind of staff he brings. So it's no surprise to me that Jason Beck would be somebody who he's targeting as his offensive coordinator choice. And obviously, Jay Hill makes a lot of sense as well. This could impact both BYU and Utah in ways that we're processing right now, right? What would it mean to Utah? You finally bring in an offensive coordinator that gets Utah in the top 5 offensively, which you never thought you'd see outside of special seasons at Utah. And BYU, losing Jay Hill would be a massive blow to that program, almost an irreplaceable blow to that program. I don't know who out there Kalani could go get that could provide both the scheme, the experience, and the recruiting ability of Jay Hill that wouldn't be a step backwards. And so this could have a huge impact on Utah. And I look at more assistants at Utah. Does Jim Harding want to go to Michigan? Is that a discussion? We talk, others have talked about Lewis Powell and others. There's so many good coaches on both of those staffs that what impact is this going to have on both Utah and BYU when it comes to personnel? I don't know about players. I imagine there could be some, but the players, I'm sure if he could bring some with him, he would. But I think the bigger impact, the bigger fallout from this is going to be how it impacts the coaching staffs at both Utah and BYU, and both the short-term and long-term impacts it could have on both the Cougars and the Utes.
Hey, we've all seen the movie Jerry Maguire. I'm feeling this when Jerry Maguire is being sent out the door and everybody's scrambling. He's scrambling to get all of his players and everybody signed and I'm feeling like Kyle Whittingham is now, is making calls. Obviously, Morgan Scalley's making calls. Kalani has to be, as they're getting ready for a bowl game, has to be making calls. I'm picturing a lot of scrambling that's happening right now with Utah and BYU.
Yeah, I think the last concern or worry up on the hill is that bowl game right now, right?
Not even not even a thought.
What kind of machinations are going on in the background? I think Coach Atuaya even tweeted out today an interesting tweet if you want to go on Twitter and see what he said after all this news came out, because this directly impacts everybody in that room, because either you're going to be asked by Kyle Whittingham if you want to come to Michigan, or an assistant could be moved and then shuffling can take place. there's so many scenarios that could play out here depending on who Kyle Whittingham wants to talk to about assistant coaching jobs, or who could be taken, who gets left behind, how are those voids filled. My goodness. I mean, if you're trying to prepare for a bowl game while you're dealing with all that, I can't imagine. It's a good thing nobody cares about bowl games anymore, right? Because this would be a massive distraction, and you're playing Nebraska, who has their own problems.
Right.
But how does that, it was already kind of awkward to begin with, because the stepping down thing, and even in Kyle Whittingham, when he talked to, finally did his first media availability after all this news came out, and talking about how he didn't want to wear out his welcome and everything, it already felt a little bit awkward with, the transition. Now this takes it to another level, because now you've got Kyle Whittingham, who's still through the bowl game, is going to coach this bowl game. And if you're Morgan Scalley, you're wondering how many of these guys are going with him and how many are staying with me. What kind of dynamic does that create in that room and in that program? These are guys that have coached together forever. This is a relationship between Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham that goes way back. 20 plus years to when Morgan was being recruited. 25 years as recruited as a player, and then obviously as a coach. How does that dynamic working in that room right now? What's it like being in there? I don't know. I would be really fascinated to know what that is like, but I can't imagine the feeling. And maybe everyone's cool with it, but how could you? If you're Morgan Scalley, now you got to replace Jason Beck. Jason Beck's going to be coaching this game, and he's already trying to figure out which players on this roster do I want to bring with me to Michigan.
Ugh.
That's playing out in that room this week. So leading up to that game next week. This is wild.
Yeah. So I just went through. I just got an email from Kenny Cox, who of course is one of the SIDs for BYU football, and he sent out, because they just had the head coach press conference for the Pop-Tart Bowl, the last one to preview everything. Kalani and Brent Key obviously getting ready for this one. I just scrolled through the transcript, and they have all the questions in bold. Shocking, there was no question about any of this. I think a lot of it was canned, and a lot of it was just pre-set up. It was like, hey, what kind of an impact has Bruce Mitchell had on the offensive line for this BYU team? I'm like, nobody wants to know that. We want to know what the heck's going on with this coaching staff. But yeah, it's a mess. College football has become a mess in that sense, and Michigan has to get this done as soon as possible, which is why I think that you are going to see something earlier rather than later. But as it starts to play out, I don't even know what an option would be at offensive coordinator for Utah. They've already got to try to figure out a defensive coordinator, because Morgan Scalley is going to be the head coach. So you potentially have to replace an offensive defensive coordinator. You potentially have to, down at BYU, replace a defensive coordinator. These are the biggest jobs in the state, short of the head coaching job at those schools. And so how do you get right at these programs? Everybody who's talking to us is just like, I don't care about Michigan. How is Utah going to be next year? How is BYU going to be? Because it does affect us probably more than and again, the coaching dominoes that went down in the last couple of years have been wild, but they haven't affected us to the extent that we've seen this one is going to. And I wonder how these big programs are going to be able to recover and replace these big-time names.
Well, that happens all the time. This was different because, you look at what Jay Hill's doing at BYU. And Jay Hill's been in the state for such a long time. And Jason Beck's bounced around quite a bit. Yep. And that's what he needed to do to develop in his career. But his ties go back to BYU, and BYU fans have known him for 25 years. And so by that, Utah fans have been familiar and know the name Jason Beck because of his time as a player at BYU and also his coaching stint at BYU. If these were randos that we didn't really know very well, or we didn't think were having a big impact, it's not a big deal. Coaching changes happen all the time. Assistant coaches move around each and every year. That carousel's always been going on. This is different because the relationships and the names involved and the impact that those coaches have makes this different. And you look at what Jason Beck has done in a short time at Utah. It's not been easy for Utah to find an offensive coordinator that is progressive and creative and forward thinking when it comes to running an offense, not to diminish what any others have done. Andy Ludwig certainly had his great years there, but there's something different and modern about what Jason Beck does with that offense. And you saw the fruit of that this year. Imagine if they can continue to get even more players here that can run what he does. But obviously that's not something that may happen now. Jay Hill, I just talked about the impact he has. He's been here forever. Seeing Jay Hill at Michigan would throw everybody for a loop as much as it is seeing Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. Jay Hill, he played at Utah, coached at Utah, and then at BYU. He's never left the state, which, and obviously what he did at Weber State. He's been here forever. We know Jay Hill. So seeing him outside the state and doing something different would be a big change. So that's why this is a little bit different. And also the amount of guys that have been here a long time, and that it's just the familiarity with these assistant coaches that is driving that. Now, the honest truth, guys, is I think that the panic and the worry, that's different for each and every assistant coach that could possibly leave. I mean, obviously the impact of Jay Hill leaving is much different than someone else on Utah staff, a position coach on Utah staff or BYU staff, potentially, or whatever. It's about the fact that Jay Hill is so important to what BYU does. But and Jason Beck hasn't been at Utah as long. I think that these coaches will be fine. Kalani will be able to go out and get somebody that would fill those shoes. It obviously wouldn't be at that level, and they'd have to grow into that. And as far as Morgan Scalley, I mean, I don't know what his relationship is with Jason Beck anyway. I mean, I have no idea. So I'm sure these guys are used to going out and interviewing new coaches each and every year. This is part of it. Morgan Scalley wanted this job. He wanted this opportunity. Welcome. Welcome to being a head coach in 2025 in whatever this world of college football is that exists now, that we're all trying to process and figure out and learn about, because it's different than any time before. Morgan's going to have to figure that out. He's going to have to go out and do that process and find the right guy. Kalani Sitake is going to have to potentially go out and get that DC that can have a similar impact. But this is what coaches have to do all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe we are overreacting slightly because of the names that are involved. And obviously the bigger deal is Kyle Whittingham wearing a hat that doesn't say Utah on it is going to throw all of us for a loop because of what he accomplished at Utah. It just felt like he was going to be there forever. He had other opportunities to leave during his time and didn't. But now knowing that this is actually happening, the shock of that, of not only seeing him go somewhere else to coach, but for it to be Michigan, I think we're all trying to wrap our head around that, what it means. But as far as assistants go, those two would be massive losses. But this happens in college football every year, and Morgan and Kalani would have to figure it out, and I'm sure they will. This is what they do, and this is why they have those networks. That's why they go to these coaching conventions. This is where that all pays off. Kalani goes on cruises with, it feels like, every coach in the country. This is when that pays off, right? Hopefully, Morgan is highly sought. I know Morgan has a tremendous reputation around the country. He's spoken at some of those coaching conventions and events. He knows people. He is very well connected, very well respected. They'll be able to go out and hire coaches that can do an adequate job. But yes, it's going to have a huge impact if those names we've mentioned actually leave and follow Kyle Whittingham to Michigan. It could have a colossal impact on recruiting. And we don't even know the players yet that could possibly be leaving. But again, we've seen, this is the new world. It's transfer portal. Players leave every year. So what? Right? We see it happen every year. And then all of a sudden, these teams they're just fine next fall because they go out and find whoever they need. So, massive impact. They'll have to figure it out. But certainly it's shocking to see all this develop because, man, imagine a month ago sitting here and seeing this all play out and witnessing what we're seeing right now. It'd be incredible.
Well, I think you're going to see, most of what people are saying too, and I wonder how much of this is, the public perception versus what really is going on. That's a tough thing to be able to call, but there are a lot of folks that feel like Utah botched this thing and that they screwed it up and that they could have had Kyle Whittingham as the head coach still, but they felt like they needed to move on from something. And I think he obviously, as soon as he started to feel that, was like, I'm not going to be the guy who ends up being like this. You guys think I'm a lame duck coach? Fine. Like, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm just going to keep this thing out.
It was a weird place that both sides were in.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
A weird place for
100%.
Utah and a weird place for Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley.
And I think you're going to get, the good news is we do get to see a lot of what the back and forth conversations. We'll have them as a public institution. We'll be able to see if there was a buyout that was involved with it. That was part of the quote unquote prodding that PK referred to of how Kyle Whittingham got out. I think everybody knew that he didn't necessarily have the choice. I think that they at least kind of put it out there. My question, I mean, the thing about the Jay Hill hire, if he ends up becoming the defensive coordinator of Michigan, is that felt like as big of a win as Kalani staying in Provo, I think, for a lot of BYU fans. And I think that's the part, too. And again, yeah, you do have to replace DCs all the time in college football. I think, frankly, people thought that Jay Hill was going to take a big-time head coaching job somewhere else anyway. And in the case of Morgan Scalley, people felt great about the idea of the number 6 offense in the country being, quote-unquote, back next year. And now everything's changed. You have an offensive and defensive coordinator gone, a possible defensive coordinator at BYU as well, and the impact is going to go deep here. I don't know how you have success, though, with a program like that right now in Michigan. I mean, how long would it take for a guy like Kyle to turn things around in Ann Arbor?
Well, that's my point I said earlier, is this is perfect for Michigan because the program was not broken. They even had success this year. They beat Ohio State last year in a down year.
Yeah.
They got talent. He doesn't have to build anything there per se. All he has to do is bring his structure and his coaching style and his discipline and the way he does things to that program with the players currently there. And then that's obvious. It's Michigan. He'll be able to assess what they have there. You know, obviously they have a quarterback issue. Is Bryce Underwood going to be back or not? He's going to have to make a decision on that. Yeah. And if not, then does he come to Utah to get some of those guys? Is Dampier and Bert Ficklin, are they Michigan quarterbacks? Is that something that fits? That's all going to have to play itself out. But the players are there. He's just got to go evaluate and bring what I said, and then they can go out and get some of those transfer portal guys they need. I think Kyle Whittingham can win there quickly. I think Michigan's fine when where that comes. That's why this hire is so great for Michigan. You talk about why did Kyle Whittingham feel the need to leave, to step down? I mean, we're all going to want to know the story of that, and we're all going to be talking to people and trying to figure out what happened there. Did Kyle Whittingham just feel like the way he was being treated was being pushed out? Was something said to him by somebody above? Was he prodded out? What are the words? He was, and I'll go back to Kyle's own words that he said after, you know, when he the first time he spoke after stepping down, was he felt like he didn't want to wear out his welcome. Well, who made him feel like he was wearing out his welcome? Because you don't just say that. We all know if we're somewhere where things feel off, or there's a reason why that is, right? So why did he feel like he possibly was wearing out his welcome? What happened behind the scenes? We're all dying to know. We all want to know. But it's pretty obvious to me, guys, that he felt that way. And what do you want to do if you feel like you're not wanted anymore somewhere? We're all competitors. We work in a competitive industry, and we know how competitive these coaches are. Don't they want to go show everybody they were wrong? Don't they want to stick it to somebody when they feel like someone said, you don't have it anymore, we need to move on, we'd be better off without you? And I'm not saying anybody at Utah said that, but it's pretty clear to me that he felt some of those emotions. Don't you want to kind of show everybody, I still got it, and I'm going to show you? And that perhaps what Kyle is doing right now is taking on a tremendously incredible challenge that he deserves and has earned the right to go do, but also at the same time to show everybody, hey, you thought I was washed. You thought I was done. You thought I should retire. I'm going to go to Michigan and compete for a national championship. You're going to regret this. Doesn't it feel, guys, like that's something that's going on right now? And by the way, on the way out, I'm going to take some of your best assistant coaches with me.
From the whole state.
Well, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's going to go try to win at Michigan. If I'm Kyle and I can get Jay Hill,
yeah.
I'm getting Jay Hill because Jay Hill's one of the best DCs in the country.
Yep.
And the player relationships that Jay Hill has. I want some of those BYU players too. Why not? I'm Kyle Whittingham. I'm the head coach at Michigan. And think about that. The amount of confidence that you get now from that is like, Michigan hired me. Michigan wants me. I'm the man. This is what I want to do. Now I have the funds and the power to go do it. I would want to. I mean, you can see why. And guys, Kyle Whittingham is one of the most intense, if not the most intense competitor I've ever met in my life. I've been around him. I had a chance to see how he operates, just even in his own office. The amount of attention to detail. He has every minute of his day planned. Every minute of his day. There's not a more disciplined, more structured person I've ever seen in my life. And he's going to take that to Michigan. He's still got it, man. I think he's the intensity that he goes about things and the fiercely competitive person he is. This is exactly feeds into that kind of competitiveness that he has. Is I'm going to show you guys what I can do. You didn't think I could coach anymore. I'm about to show you at one of the most storied programs in all of college football. I'm going to show you, and I think that's what's going on right now.
Nobody holds a grudge like Kyle Whittingham. Just go see the
it was
Utah.
The third quarter.
Yeah,
it was the third quarter.
Utah-Wyoming game.
Did you want us to quit? It was the third quarter.
Absolutely.
We all know that.
Joe Glenn has caught so many strays today on this.
And if he feels like he's been wronged, which obviously, like, he wasn't ready to go. So if he feels like he was wronged in any way, he's coming for you.
Even if it's a perception, Lloyd.
Exactly.
Even if he perceived it, he's going to be driven and motivated by that to go show people. And I totally understand why Kyle Whittingham is taking this job and wants this job and wants this opportunity. It makes total sense to me.
So tons of Michigan fans, by the way, coming out of the woodwork and going, this is what we need. This is what we need. Very few reaching out and going, no, this is a bad hire. Everybody wants. I think part of the issue is that winning at Michigan's one thing, and usually that fixes everything. I mean, you could just look at this program that's been an absolute mess and has been filled with bad people, and winning still was still the biggest deal. They're like, I don't know. I can deal with the off the field stuff, and I could deal with the cheating allegations, but Utah, of course. There's a different vibe with Coach Whittingham, and I think people come in there and go, well, he's going to clean up the place. He's not going to actively go in and be like, I'm going to clean this place up from the top down. You know what he's doing? He's going in there and go, I have one way to coach, and this is the culture that I bring. And by the way, along the way, I guarantee that it'll get cleaned up. But it's not because I'm coming in here in cleanup mode. I come in here in Kyle Whittingham competitive mode. And that's the same, by the way, Michigan fans remember over the past, 10 and 15 years when they played him in 2008, when they played him in that back-to-back series in 14 and 15. And Kyle Whittingham beat him in every contest, And so there's obviously they know who Kyle Whittingham is. They can't pretend. And Kyle Whittingham, by the way, that national championship run, it's back on the table, and probably more than it ever has been just by taking this job. And as one of the people pointed out, it just feels weird because will Kyle Whittingham have a seizure when he has to mutter the term "Go Blue" when he gets to Michigan? The answer is probably not, because the green part helps that. The green will always help you say "Go Blue." JJ, we appreciate it, man. Jeremiah Jensen. We've all been off during some of this break here, but we've all been watching this very, very closely. And then today we're all working because here we are talking about.
Hey, well, it's been good. This is a massive story. So it's a massive story, and it's fun to be able to get on. And I know a lot of people listening. I mean, I saw people on Twitter. It's like, you guys need to be on. Like, here we are, guys. We're definitely on, and we want to talk about this because this is a massive story. It's going to continue to be a massive story. We're going to see the fallout from this in the coming days and weeks. But it's been great to get on and talk this through, guys, because I had a lot of thoughts as soon as this happened, and so it's been fun to share some of those thoughts and get that out. But yeah, what a day! Massive story, and we'll continue to follow it.
We're trying to figure out which one or what a bigger local story has been that we've covered, and the Gordon Hayward stuff is actually not that big of a deal compared to this. No. I guess when Rudy Gobert had COVID down in Oklahoma City, that ended up having a lot of repercussions. But that
changed the world.
That was a different scenario.
Was a different scenario.
But from
changed in a different way.
JJ, you've been covering this market for 20 years. We've all kind of watched a lot of big news come and go. Where does this one land, do you think, in stuff that we've been covering?
Yeah, it's significantly up there. The story's not done developing, so the judgment will come once it's all fleshed out, because we don't know who's leaving or who's going. Look, if Kyle Whittingham just goes and coaches Michigan and Utah and BYU were able to retain all their assistants, and we see maybe one or two or maybe no transfers, then it's not as big of a story, right? Because it's just, Kyle Whittingham is going to take the Michigan job, and his legacy stayed in Utah stays intact, and it's just a cool chapter in Kyle Whittingham's coaching history. But guys, we know that that's probably not how this is going to shape out. And if it shapes out the way we think, how do Utah fans feel about Kyle Whittingham if their coaching staff ends up getting gutted and some of the key players leave?
And BYU fans already still dislike him, so it doesn't really matter there.
And what if that's the thing with Jay Hill is like no big deal. But what impact does Jay Hill leaving BYU have on BYU's program?
Massive.
So
you take a big step back immediately.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the story. The story magnifies as those dominoes continue to fall. And so the judgment on what impact or how significant this is in Utah sports history is still developing. And we're all going to sit there and watch each domino fall and go, what's next? Because this is just getting started.
Jeremiah, we appreciate it, man. I love seeing the rumors and things swirling because we lick our chops when it comes to this stuff. And I know that you're a breaking news, sports breaking news junkie like we are, and so we appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on in short term. And well, guess what? We'll chat with you again. I'm assuming in the near future about all of this. So there you go. Thanks, JJ. Good. Appreciate it, man.
Yep. See you guys.
There you go, Jeremiah Jensen. Let's take a break. Well, should we take a little quick break? Yeah, we'll take a quick break. Yeah. We've been going for a while. Let's take that break. We'll come back.
Sorry, Steve. We're going to get to you here.
We'll get to Steve Bartle in just one moment here. I do also have a very, very we have a clip from Dave Portnoy we want to play a little bit later, arguably one of Michigan's at least most loud-spoken fans on the internet, and what Stooley president has to say about his Blue hiring, the possibility of hiring Kyle Whittingham. According to them, spoiler alert, they're back officially. So we'll take a break. We'll come back. Steve Bartle joins us next, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
I don't know if it's ever out of your system. I mean, it's in your blood, and so I don't know about that. Not that being said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but it's when you got the coaching in your blood, it just doesn't go away. Well, the program's in a good place right now. As I've said many times, after last season, just didn't sit right with anybody, particularly me. Came back and unfortunately we were able to get the ship righted and everything's on track. The program, like I said, is in a good spot. Got good coaches. Coach Scally will come in and do a great job. Got good players. So now is the time.
Welcome on in, everybody. The KSL Sports Zone marching along here on a breaking news day, the day after Christmas. We appreciate them waiting till after Christmas. Lloyd, that could have been the alternative. We could have been here right now, yesterday. But instead, the possibility of Kyle Whittingham being hired as the University of Michigan next head coach. It's all but a done deal, according to sources, multiple. And not just that, the names that are being floated out there for the possible offensive coordinator job, Jason Beck's name at the very, very top of the list, according to those sources. Jay Hill's name at the very top of the list for the defensive coordinator side of things. And so you would see a massive shift here in the state of Utah when it comes to the coaching across the entire state for the two biggest programs. Joining us on the program right now, he is our Ute insider for KSLSports.com. Steve, I know we all imagined we'd have a nice break, but we know how it goes. We don't get to have nice breaks sometimes. We can't have nice things all the time, but massive news. Your thoughts initially as we saw this thing go down. I think I dismissed the Michigan rumors and rolled my eyes at the very beginning of all of that process. Were you always kind of thinking that this would have been a possibility for Whit to take this type of a job?
Yeah, it's been interesting following this whole thing and, going from the moment he stepped down. Once that became a thing, I got an update that he was pretty interested in making a run at that Michigan job from somebody. It wasn't any sort of thing where I felt like I could report on it, like Kyle was going to make a run, but just kind of was told that don't be surprised if Kyle makes a run at this. And so here we are. It's crazy. I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. ready to go to the gym, ready to get a head start on my New Year's resolutions. and I was all ready to get after it in the gym, and then Pete Thamel drops the tweet that Kyle Whittingham has emerged as the the leading candidate. And so I typed out an article on my phone. And if you've ever done that, it's ridiculous. Don't do it. It's a horrible experience. And so,
did you do that while working out, Steve?
No, I wasn't working out while I did it. I can't. No, I can't do that. But I was at the gym while I did it.
Any excuse to not have to hit that third set, I'll take it. You know what I mean?
Hey, amen to that, dude. Amen. But it's been interesting. So, here we are. And I always felt like Kyle was, with the Michigan situation being what it is, having to fire Sharon Moore, and, with what Michigan has had to deal with over the last couple of years, with, a lot of difficulties in terms of, troubles and problems with their athletic department, within their athletic department. I always felt like Whittingham was a really good hire, considering what went down with Sharon Moore, the timing of it all, right? When you're a big program like Michigan, you want to be at the front of the line in the coaching carousel. And this year that was LSU and that was Florida. Michigan, was behind the eight ball, and to land a coach like Kyle Whittingham, that's a significant, almost like, it's falling upwards is what it is for the Wolverines. So, I know the deal is close to completion and all that, and I anticipate seeing something today or tomorrow morning.
We're all kind of hoping that it happens like in the next 15 minutes. So if we can will that to happen, I know there's a lot more that has to get done, because I would assume that they probably want to make that known sooner rather than later. They want to get past their past as quickly as possible. They want to be able to get immediately on the board, because when you make a hire and they go, hey, look what we're doing now, we're cleaning ourselves up. You know what I mean? Like they want that image to go out as soon as they can. And maybe that's with a defensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator all ready to be able to announce with it. Maybe that doesn't happen until later. I don't know what they want, but I know that Michigan will want to have that announcement made ASAP. And the powers that be, I'm sure there are a lot of folks out there, and Steve, you're not above this either, but the air traffic control, the possibility of seeing a charter jet heading to Ann Arbor out of Salt Lake today or yesterday, I'm sure people are looking into it. It's a wild time, but what do they do what were they thinking from the defensive coordinator position anyway at Utah, as Morgan Scalley was trying to figure these things out? And then now, if they have to adding an OC into it, is that something that is going to put Utah behind the eight ball for the next season, for even longer term, or do you think there are guys that would be available immediately that they could feel good about?
Well, there's a lot there. I heard that Kyle Whittingham was going to be in Ann Arbor today. Haven't been able to confirm that officially, but was told by a pretty good source that he'd be in Ann Arbor today. I would anticipate that Michigan and Kyle have a really good idea of what the staff is going to look like by the time they make the announcement official. So that means offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, probably a couple position coaches. I think Michigan is going to want to have this pretty buttoned up by the time the news is done and announced. And so what it seems like is, Jason Beck, it sounds like he's the leading candidate to be the offensive coordinator for Michigan. And then, too, it sounds like Jay Hill is also kind of the leading candidate for the defensive coordinator position, which obviously is pretty significant as well. So in terms of what it means for Utah and Morgan Scalley specifically and how they move forward, frankly, I don't know. This is going to be a pretty significant moment, for Morgan Scalley as he begins his career, right, where he now has to make a pretty significant hire at offensive coordinator. On the defensive side of the ball, it sounds like those coaches are pretty well locked in with Morgan Scalley. Speaking of Coach Swan, Coach Shaw, Coach Ellis, and Coach Lewis Powell, that's been the overwhelming sentiment, as those guys are pretty locked in with Scalley. And so from that side of the ball, it sounds like he's got a pretty good idea of who that's going to be. I've said it before, and I continue to hear that Coach Swan is probably the leading candidate, for that defensive coordinator position. And so that helps him there. But the offensive coordinator position, that's now a pretty significant job that he has to go out and find somebody. And given where we're at, in late December, going into January, you've got a bowl game next week where Morgan Scalley is probably going to be the head coach of that game. It's going to be really interesting to see what Utah is able to do in that game. But then for Scalley, who he elects to make a focus in their offensive coordinator pursuit. And then two, it's not just that. It's there's potential personnel departures, not just personnel, but personnel staff departures. I wouldn't be surprised to see Utah's general manager Robert Blecken follow Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, and that's now a pretty significant role in college football. So this is pretty impactful, and Morgan Scalley is going to have to hit the ground running here now that it seems Kyle Whittingham is off to Ann Arbor.
Steve, who and this is kind of speculation. Who are do you think is going to be your for Morgan Scalley? Who is like his must-haves, guys that he absolutely needs to retain? Obviously, I think Jason Beck's only here a year. I think that one's going to be difficult. There's obviously not going to be as much maybe loyalty with Morgan there. But who do you think are like the must-haves that Morgan Scalley really needs to land to try to keep a little bit of maybe chemistry or whatever with this staff?
Yeah, I think obviously it starts on the defensive side of the ball. And, as long as he can keep his defensive coaches here in Salt Lake City, that's going to be a big relief to him, as they have to start to retool and all that. But as long as Utah has their defensive coaches, they have their defensive players, it'll be a competitive team. Offensively, you're hoping to hang on to as many guys as you can, but obviously it sounds like Beck is the leading candidate for the coordinator job. It also sounds like Jim Harding is likely going to follow Whittingham to Michigan. Harding is from the Midwest. He's from Ohio, and I would assume that Michigan has always sort of been a dream job for him. He's pretty loyal to Whittingham and the opportunity that he provided him. So you're going to want to hang on to as many offensive line players as you can, and Isaac Asiata could be pretty impactful there. So you're going to want to hang on to him as well. And then, if you can hang on to Atawaya and Micah Simon, that's pretty significant as well to keep the chemistry. But, again, it's all going to depend on what Scalley elects to do with that offensive coordinator position, right? There could be an offensive coordinator that wants to bring in his own guys and bring in that chemistry, from his side of things, which we saw with Beck last year, bringing in Simon and Atawaya. So, there's a lot of things to factor in here, but as long as Scalley can keep the defensive coaches, keep the bulk of that, of those defensive players, keep, Asiata and a couple other guys on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, at the quarterback position, that's going to be really interesting to follow here. I think Bird Ficklin, he's signed and ready to run it back for 2026. With Devin Dampier, we know that he has a really good relationship with Jason Beck, and even despite Bryce Underwood's presence there at Michigan, I could see Devin Dampier wanting to follow Jason Beck to Michigan, which would be another significant factor. So there's a lot at play here, and again, it just kind of speaks to the hole that Morgan Scalley is being placed in, as he takes over the program here.
Steve, one thing that also has been kind of eating away at us is the internal turmoil that can come from something like this that feels like Utah kind of, quote unquote, blew it with Kyle Whittingham. How do they pick up those pieces and at least maybe repair what the public may be seeing as a an attempt to, or just really losing out on a moment like this when, and forcing Whit out and getting him to a place like Michigan when obviously it felt like he actually wasn't ready to go?
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation. Because Morgan Scally obviously is considered the future of the program. We know that Whittingham is, to the tail end of his career, and I think one of the more difficult things is the year by year. Is he retiring? Is he coming back? I think that's something that has been difficult to navigate. For certain people specifically, and with Scally, he's getting up there, and he's had plenty of opportunities to leave Utah before. He had a handful of opportunities to leave Utah this month, and I think with this whole situation. I feel like Utah prioritized the future with Morgan Scally, and that's going to be the topic of conversation, right? Is obviously Whittingham is a legend and a living legend. He's done so much for the University of Utah, for the Utah football program. He's built it into a national program that media members view highly and have a tremendous amount of respect for. But I think a lot of the last couple of years have really have done a number on people there in the program with decisions that have been made, in terms of personnel, in terms of injury and that sort of thing. I just think there's a lot of things to consider here, and I think at the heart of it was Morgan Scally's future with the program. And I think had Whittingham come back, that Scally is very likely gone from the University of Utah. Now, obviously, do you criticize Utah for choosing the future over a few more years of Kyle Whittingham when there was a possibility where if Whittingham does stay in place, could Utah have hired Morgan Scally back in a few years from now? Who knows? We will never find that out. But I just think there's so much to consider here, and so it's difficult to say that Utah messed this up. But certainly it's worthy of criticism. It's worthy of questioning, and I think Utah had the reasonings for wanting to prioritize Morgan Scally and the future. I think Morgan brings a lot to the table when you're talking about the current dynamics of a college football program, the demands in terms of needing to generate NIL. I think Morgan Scally is going to do a lot on that front to really kind of move Utah forward there. I think he can do a lot to help Utah bring in more resources. I think there's a lot of excitement about what Morgan can do at the helm for Utah football. But again, given the fact that you have a living legend in Kyle Whittingham, a few more years of that, man, it's a tough thing to consider. There's a lot of things here to consider, and it's a difficult conversation for sure.
Steve Bartle, he's our Ute insider for KSLSports.com, and he's on top of all of this, of course. And as soon as anything becomes official, you can, of course, read his byline at KSLSports.com. You can listen to us streaming live right now, and we've got a lot of hours already in the books. So we've already been doing with this thing and running with it since about 11:30 here live in studio. And so, Steve, thanks for jumping on a day that we all thought we were going to have off, but the breaking news is always the fun stuff anyway. So we appreciate you jumping on and being a part of it today, man. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. You guys have a good one. There
you go, Steve Bartle. Yes, you can tune in to any of the over-the-air options, but of course you can stream all of this live, and then we're going to get the all of these across all of our shows on the podcast form as well. If you missed any of the conversation we're going to have, we still anticipate having a conversation with a beat writer from Michigan, the Detroit Free Press. He's going to join us at the 2:05 hour, and I think that's going to be interesting. Tony Garcia, Detroit Free Press is who he writes for, but he covers Michigan football and basketball. So interesting times being able to figure this thing out. We'll talk to him in just a couple minutes. Speaking of a couple minutes, I wanted you to hear a little chunk of a bite here, Lloyd, of Michigan's arguably biggest, at least loudest fan currently, Dave Portnoy, talking about.
You mean Provo Dave?
Provo Dave is now going to become Ann Arbor Dave, I think, for sure. It's going to be Kyle Whittingham Dave. Here's what he said when he took to Twitter today, because obviously people have been wondering about what this program is going to look like. And here's what Portnoy had to say about it.
We are so back, I don't even know what to do about it. Listen, I was a little worried about this Michigan coaching search. Not gonna lie, I was saying, I hope we know what we're doing. I hope these guys in charge, I don't even know who that is, but I hope we have a plan, because time is a ticking and I'm getting nervous. You saw Kalen DeBoer. No, I didn't want him. You saw Dillingham didn't get offered. I was like, oh, I would have loved Dillingham. And then what happens? Kyle Whittingham. Yes, Kyle Whittingham from Utah. 2 decades at Utah. One of the greatest coaches in the history of college football. Listen, Provo Dave knows him well. He built a powerhouse, tough, physical, man, Michigan-type football. I've heard Urban Meyer, he never dreamed this. I heard Urban Meyer whisper in production meetings at Big Noon Kickoff, man, that Whittingham's the best coach I've ever seen. And now he comes to Michigan. This isn't just rebuilding, restarting. This is the beginning of a dynasty. The Michigan ethos, the Michigan man mantra, it's back. This is an upgrade. I never wish ill will on anything. I never want my head coach to be having an affair with his executive assistant and then run into her house with a butter knife and threaten to kill himself in front of her and harm. Nobody wants that. But when you put your bet on a pillow, a Michigan man pillow at night, and you think how this thing shook out, honestly, it couldn't have shook out better. We now have one of the best coaches in the history of college football leading the best program in the history of college football. This thing, I couldn't be happier to welcome Kyle Whittingham to the Michigan Man family. He is an honorary instant Michigan man. And if I'm Ohio State, I'm not worried about the playoffs. I'm worried, will we ever beat this team again? It is great to be a Michigan Wolverine. Say it together. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine.
I think he's excited, Lloyd. I think Dave Portnoy's pretty darn excited.
You know what? That's what Kyle Whittingham will bring to Michigan.
I think that, honestly, I haven't seen. I mean, I think there's some folks out there that'll just poo-poo whatever the decision is that's being made. But you're telling me that that's not an upgrade, at least from Sharon Moore? I mean, times 1 million. Not just from the integrity standpoint, not just from like the you don't have to worry about that kind of crap standpoint. He's a better coach. I mean, just plain
Michigan
and simple.
fans who should be through the roof.
They should.
Now, Utah and BYU fans, yeah, they're gonna be a little grumpy. But like I said, like we've talked about, if Morgan Scalley comes out and wins, and does what many think that Morgan can do, and BYU keeps doing with it, then guess what? It won't even matter. It'll be fine. They won't be grumpy at Witt. They won't be grumpy at Utah. They won't be grumpy.
It'll take a minute.
Fine.
Yeah.
They'll be fine.
All right. We'll take the break. The reports, of course, is that it's all but a done deal with Kyle Whittingham going to the University of Michigan as a head coach. Who will he take with him as his offensive and defensive coordinator and other staff? That's yet to be seen. We will, of course, bring you any of that as soon as it comes down. Joining us next, right around the corner after this short break, we've got Tony Garcia from the Detroit Free Press. He covers Michigan for the Detroit Free Press. We'll get his thoughts on this one and the news going down. He's working on a day like today, too.